Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and Arata the Legend by Yu Watase. I felt like a weird deja vu about that name. She wrote, the only one I knew was Alice 19 from when I was like in high school, and she's got a few very famous shoujo manga, and this is her big shonen manga. This is probably the most library I had to control my OCD thing ever, because my library literally only has volume 21, 22, and 23. Why those three volumes specifically, I do not know. So I thought maybe this would be an interesting moment to hop in right in the middle of the series and see if Yu Watase does a good job of, catching me up on the adventure and what's going on, if I can get into the story. Because of that, there kind of has to be like an asterisk for this review, that I don't think it's fair to evaluate volume 21 of a manga if you haven't read volumes 1 through 20. That being said, I didn't really get into it, and I don't think I'm going to read any more past volume 21 unless I can find volume 1 and read it from the beginning and see if I like how the characters are handled and whether that absorbs me into the story. I wasn't able to just hop right in and go along through the adventure of like mid-adventure. The Yu Watase has incredibly strong art. So even if I don't like enjoy something and get hooked on it, I still have mad respect for Yu Watase. And I think I would have really, really enjoyed Arata the Legend when I was 10, and would have found like all the spectacular sword battle sequences fun when I was 10. But kind of since like turning 12, I've been more interested in logical fight scenes, where even if there's like a magical power, like I like to say, if this guy's got a sword that can cut through anything, and this guy's weak but he has psychic powers, well, now the psychic power guy has to pick up rocks and tree trunks with his mind and throw it at the sword guy, but the sword guy can cut through anything. Oh no, he's trying to get closer to the psychic guy, but the psychic guy keeps throwing things. And right, even if there's like a magical aspect to it, I like there to be something that makes sense. And so the reason I don't think I'm getting into Yu Watase's Arata the Legend is the fight sequences are all the stereotypical like shonen spectacular sword flaming dragon emperor stuff that I'm used to seeing in a lot of stuff, without too much of like a comprehensive thing I can wrap my brain around and say, I understand this fight scene, I understand who is more powerful, or I understand how their powers contrast with one another. It just feels like a lot of like big explosive spectacular sequences without much context. So this stuff was really important, because this actually did a pretty good job of familiarizing me with the characters in the world. So Arata Hinohara here is like a Japanese high school student. He was like the top of his class in physical education, and he is the counterpart of like a deity named Arata, and it's sort of like the worlds can mix together. So Arata, the high school students, switches places with Arata, the like deity being, and so now this poor high school kid has to kind of like fulfill the responsibilities of the god Arata, and he has to sort of bring into submission all six of the show, and kind of bring peace to the realm, Ronald Reagan style, peace through superior firepower. He's got a whole bunch of anime girls and dreamy anime guys going on his adventure with him. Some of them are the 12 Shinsho, who are like the 12 Shinsho are the servants of the show. And then there's also these Zuko show, and I don't really understand what the difference between a Zuko show and a Shin show is, except that the Shin show seem to be nearly as powerful as a show and have super duper swords, and the Zuko show will have like smaller powers that may be useful, but in very specific scenarios. So yeah, this actually did a good job. This did a good job kind of catching me up to speed on who hates who wants revenge on who, what the deal is, and I'm kind of down for it. It's the sort of classic, young boy has responsibility thrust on him. He's got to get super strong to bring peace to the realm and save everybody. And here I'm going to show you like a really good example of what I'm talking about, where my joke name for it is, I call this, whatever it is, whatever their special name for it is, I always call this Rising Fist of the Dragon Emperor. And what Rising Fist of the Dragon Emperor is it's an uppercut. It's, you summon a giant dragon made out of fire, right? And then it spreads its magical 1,000-year-old wings that have a spectacular Japanese name, and then it tackles the guy. So pretty much the action is a tackle. It ends up being as interesting as if this guy just tackled the other guy. But it gives you like this spectacular scene for like a magical dragon appearing out of nowhere. So there's nothing wrong with someone having like a big over-the-top literal flaming dragon attack, but I really want to understand how powerful is the flaming dragon, and what can beat the flaming dragon, and how do you beat the flaming dragon. So this is the reason I say I'd love this if I was 10 is it all looks splendid, spectacular, filling the page with all kinds of over-the-top stuff, but it just doesn't speak to me on the level of I like to know how strong the characters are so that I'm invested in, if they're fighting a stronger opponent, can they beat the stronger opponent? How do I know it's a stronger opponent? Also, the swords seem to have like people attached to them. Like if you submit to the show, then your soul becomes part of the weapon and you live on in the form of the weapon, but it's almost like you die or you stay a weapon forever. I'm not quite sure how that works. That's really not useful because I'm hopping in so late. So like he fights his friend. There's like an evil villain who can manipulate emotions. This stuff. Yu does a really good job, I think, of using large panels and filling the space for important moments. So for that action sequence, it's lots of crazy diagonals, filling it with lots of fiery attacks and spectacular stuff. Then little panels showing in action, and then a big yell or a big zoom in on an eye for like an important moment. And what I really like about this is it's a good example of using space effectively. So tiny space, tiny space, tiny space, bigger space, biggest space possible for this important moment, back to kind of like normal use of space, which is in contrast to something like the Captain Marvel book I read recently, where everything kind of feels of similar visual weight, and maybe there'll be a one-page spread once in a while, maybe there'll be a few action sequences once in a while. I think that Watase does a really, really good job of giving the most space to things that are the most important, and then tightening up the space use for little scenes so that you just get it's a rhythm. I don't know if you can ever really describe it mathematically. You just kind of have to feel it out. Maybe you could do some sort of robotic scientific survey to figure out how it works, but there's a good balance between the big things and the little things and the medium things. And the big pictures go with the big moments, the little pictures go with the little moments, that kind of a thing. So I think really I almost got to say everything I wanted to say. More. This is another page I highlighted because I would have thought this was so dope when I was 10 years old, and I really, really respect this art. I just wish I kind of understood. I understood the characters and the strategy of fighting. Here's another good page. So I want to focus on the good things because I've kind of dug it a bit. So like normal panel, like a little angle, normal panel. So like he accidentally hurt his friend because it's like, oh, if you use the power, you'll become a demon. You don't want to become a demon. You've got to learn to control the power, right? And so then like he comes to her bed and she's all cut up. And I guess you go down this way, zoom out on an eye, no panel around this, so it's just emptying out into the gutter, raising her hand, so that's an important gesture, kind of touching him gently, and then saying, you feel worse than I do, with a huge emphasis on her face for that comment, because this is clearly something that's important to him, because he feels guilty about hurting her, and these words have weight. Therefore, they're given visual weight, kind of a zoom in close on his face, kind of like a little memory of the friend he's worried he's lost forever. Back to normal. Excellent. Great. Fantastic. You could make a case study out of this about giving visual emphasis to important things. Why'd I highlight this? He's getting super intensely emotional about becoming a monster, which it seems like I could get invested in something like that. It's the classic, young boy has to become a hero. He has to struggle. He has to avoid having his power turn him into a monster. Those are good universal themes for fantasy storytelling. The ornate detail is all spectacular. The fancy outfits are all spectacular. Oh, there is something I want to show you a tiny bit later. So they decide that they've got to go to the town to find a healer to rescue the girl who got injured. Oh, okay. This I thought was a really neat little scene. So this is something that kind of makes me... I'm not going to bash on Arata. I don't think I'm going to read much more, but I am interested to try to go find Volume 1, if possible, because of scenes like this. So... his old friend who betrayed him and made his other friend submit and become his weapon. Now Arata's really ticked about that. So he says, I'll never forgive Katawaki for making my friend submit. And so Seo kind of looks at him, and Arata says, I'm going to get Kanate back, and to do that I swear to make Katawaki submit by force. I can't change how Katawaki feels about me. So what I like this is kind of playing with the idea of, the powerful boy has to conquer the medieval fantasy world with a little bit more depth than just, I gotta go kick some butts and then everything will be peaceful. So the idea is my problem with a lot of these is there's a lot of friendship, and friendship fixes everything, which can be a good theme, and it's a very shonen story kind of theme, but it can be a little obnoxious and trite. So what this is doing is saying that what he feels makes sense. He blames this guy for betraying him, his former friend, and enslaving or maybe pseudo-killing his other friend by forcing him to become his weapon. And so Arata, who's normally a really sweet, really kind of down-to-earth, normal high school kid, now he feels like he's ready to kill someone and force them, not kill them, but force them to become his slave. So Seo's advice is, as long as you take responsibility for your feelings and actions, personal responsibility. So he's saying there is nothing wrong with it. It's all right if you feel that way now, as long as you take personal responsibility. So it's not saying for you to become the lord of the realm and conquer everybody and bring them into submission in order to bring peace to the realm. That is an idea that you can't, that's not a G-rated story idea. That's an idea that this world is at war. I have to become the lord of this world. I have to conquer all the other warring lords and force them to have a peace for the sake of this realm, which means you have to go to war. The goal of war, peace through superior firepower, quote Ronald Reagan, or Rush Limbaugh, the point of an army is to kill people and break stuff. If the whole point of the story is to become the lord of the realm, you got to kill people and break some stuff. And that's not a good little G-rated world of telling stories. So what I really liked about this, what I appreciated about it, is it kind of acknowledged that in order for him to become the lord, he can't just friendship his enemies into following him. He has to develop strength and power to do that. But there's also this thing where he's not power mad. He's not seeking power just for the sake of having power. He's seeking power on behalf of his friends so that he can bring peace to people, which I appreciate. And I really appreciated this, that Seo doesn't just lecture him, say, oh no, it's bad for you to want to conquer anyone. He's saying, as long as you take personal responsibility for that decision, you can feel that way, which is kind of Seo's way of cautioning him not to necessarily have that mindset, and maybe to can maybe be more compassionate to Katawaki, be willing to forgive Katawaki. I guess because Katawaki really didn't kill the guy. He just made him his weapon. It's not like he murdered him in cold blood. So there might still be redemption for Katawaki down the road. So I just thought that was a really neat way of kind of emphasizing that theme for a young boy of don't let your anger at your enemy control you and turn you into a monster. So I appreciated that. I thought it was pretty sophisticated. And this guy shows up, and he's the show something Lord Amino, and I just dig his design because he looks like Blade. He's got this spiky hair and the crazy anime armor and this swoopy cape, and he's just got these Blade sunglasses and white tattoos and a goatee. And he shows up and he just starts blowing up a whole bunch of innocent people, because the whole point is this is a feudal Japan, world of warlords attacking each other and killing people. These aren't nice guys. Arata's got a tough job if he wants to bring all these people to heel and make them submit to his rule. I just think that looks so dope. What a cool looking character design. At the end, they kind of set up the next story, and there's a little thing by assistant. If I could just put an idea in the good idea canon and fire that at Tokyo, I really wish that it would become more normal for the assistants to get named in these projects, because I'd just like to know if this assistant goes on and makes a manga that, oh yeah, they worked on that one book I really liked, and now they're doing their own book. But this person is named only as assistant. Japan, please put the name of the assistants in the credits for the sake of art history. Please do it for us. And then they do some little cutesy comments about how big the swords are, what the power is. If I can get it to focus, there's a cute little doodle of how big the sword is compared to a person. And then Yu Watase has some like personal comments about taking a vacation and then overworking yourself and needing an IV because Japan is full of overworkers who have type A personalities and value working over everything else, which means they make really great comics, really beautiful comics. But I even like picked that up in this. Like every character in one of these, it's like they're driven by, oh no, I'm weaker than my friend and I must become stronger than my friend. I won't feel great until I have become stronger than my friend and I've always looked at them from behind. Take a vacation once in a while. But in Yu Watase, please don't kill yourself just to make manga for us. With that said, I'm really impressed. Like Yu Watase does like girls' romances, and then when she does like a boys' comic, she brings like all the monsters, she brings all the swords and all the spectacular explosions that a little boy would love. This was pretty family friendly. They say for teen. Yeah, I think a 13-year-old. This might even be like 13 might be too old for this comic. This is like a 10 or 11-year-old comic, I think. Nothing too grim or drastic for it. Pretty much a PG-rated movie. I think maybe a 13-year-old might get... I got a little bored with the action sequences because I've seen stuff like it before, but I have mad respect for Yu Watase's illustration style. So I'm not saying don't read it. I'm just saying I'm not going to read more of it until I can find volume 1 and see if I like the whole thing. So maybe this experiment failed. I thought maybe I could jump in right in the middle. Not quite, but it's very pretty, very cool. I will look for it. With that, I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. This is my first... I'm going to start having a schedule for videos so you kind of know what to expect. So I'll give that its own video later. With that, peace. Catch you later.